Good morning. Hi, how you doing? And welcome to the Jobcare live stream. This morning, it's Tuesday morning. I think we're the 18th of January. Great to have you all here and joining us. So today we're starting a new course. We've got lots of new participants who are kind of joining us. So you're all very welcome. We're looking forward to kind of interacting with you in the chat. So feel free to say hi and feel free to kind of ask questions as we go along. It'd be great to have you. This morning, we've got the pleasure of one of our kind of long-term supporters, Mr. Stephen Norton, who is an executive coach. He also deals a lot with kind of training kind of leaders and kind of helping them to level up. And he also runs the Good Boss, Bad Boss podcast, which kind of helps to kind of give people an insight into how they can be better leaders, and it also kind of gives a kind of wide exposure to people across different organizations. So it's great to have them there. So you can already see Stephanie, Anna, Victoria all saying hi in the chat. So nice to have you. But first up, I'm going to get Stephen to come on and join us. Morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Rowley. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Yeah. Really good.
And I'd just like to say, for anybody who feels that they're going slightly mad, it is actually the 19th of January.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
in case you think you're really early. Yeah. Look, it's one of those months, January, where we don't start counting the days until halfway through anyway. So I wouldn't.
And then it feels like 2 months by the time we get to February.
Yeah, and we've just had Blue Monday apparently, which is the toughest day of the year, was yesterday. So if you got over yesterday and you've made it to today, congratulations.
How's 2021 looking for you?
It's good. It's 2021 is a bit of a funny one. It's like The Hangover in many ways. You're kind of going, what happened last year? What was going on? But it's good in that there's loads of new opportunities. I think that's really good. People are starting to make plans. People are starting to get their businesses going, and I can see that coming through the conversations I've been having with businesses. So I would say that the opportunities are emerging now. People were in shock last year, I think, business wise. There was a lot of firefighting and a lot of survival, but this year they know the drill. They're used to how people are working and how things are going. Brexit is done. It's a reality and people are getting on with that. And so there's a lot of opportunity in that. There's a huge amount of companies have relocated here to Ireland as well because of that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities coming up in 2021, and it's going to be a lot of fun. By the end of the year, we're all going to be having fiestas, so it's going to be great crack.
That sounds great. But yeah, it's great to give it that sort of perspective. Amazing. I'm going to hand over to you in a second if you want to kind of get your presentation there ready to go. But I'll say hi to Shane, Tracy, Sarah, Karen, the Mac, Michael, Sandra, Dara, Reading Monsters, Mayara, Tiziana, Paula. There's loads of people on here. We've got 50 people watching already. So it's a great start to the morning. So looking forward to it. What are you going to be sharing with us today, Stephen?
We'll be talking about your personal energy. We'll be talking about managing your emotions, and we'll be talking about controlling your narrative, controlling your story as well. That's basically what I want to focus on this morning.
Amazing, great. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you so we can get on with it, and you can deliver that great content. And I'll be jumping back in later on if there's any questions. But we'll keep an eye on the chat, and if anything comes up, you'll see it yourself. But if needs be, I'll collate them, and we'll get to it at the end. So people feel free to kind of ask questions as we're going along. They may get answered straight away, but we also might jump in and get to them towards the end. Great.
Absolutely. Thanks a million,
Right,
Rowley.
Stephen,
Great, thanks, Rowley. As Rowley said there, please do ask any questions you want. This is an open forum and a conversation. This is not just about me. What I want to tell you, first of all, is a little bit about me and who I am. I have a passionate belief in the power and potential inside each human being. And I really do mean that. I think that every single person I meet has more to give and has something beautiful to give to the world. And I believe that so much so that I actually left uncertain world of working for yourself. But I knew that I had to pursue that passion because all my life I've had that belief. Ever since I was a teenager, where I found out that connecting with people was a really important thing to do. I would have watched a film. I don't know whether any of you know it. It's called Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. And when Robin Williams came on the radio on Good Morning Vietnam and said, "Good morning, Vietnam, we're going to rocket from the Delta to the DMZ," I just thought, that's what I want to do. I just thought it was amazing the way he connected with each person out in the boonies in Vietnam in that film. And then I went and studied radio, and I got into radio, and it was amazing at first, but then there was just things that didn't suit me, whether it be bosses or co-workers. And so I ended up going to Dublin and getting a job in the bank. And I did quite well in the bank. I actually started rising up through the ranks in the bank. And I always say that's because, if you see a field full of roses and there's one daisy, you'll probably notice the daisy. And I was that daisy. In between times, I actually worked for a charity called Aware Defeat Depression as well. And that was something close to my heart, and did some great work there, organizing cycles to Cork with loads of celebrities and sponsored hikes in Spain and things like this. But what I realized, whether it be the radio, the charity, or the bank, the one thing that kept on connecting me was the people and the potential in each person. And that's really why I changed my career to be a leadership coach and to train people in leadership. I believe that if you, rather than working with individuals within a company, if you work with the leaders, you can affect more people. You can have a positive effect on more people. So that's why I work with leaders predominantly. And it's also why I started the Good Boss, Bad Boss podcast, which is all about the good, the bad, and the ugly world of work in terms of leadership. I've talked to some really amazing people there. Nora Casey from the Dragon's Den, and Lucky Kambule from the movement of asylum seekers, who is one of the guys who Jobcare know quite well as well. He's a real success story for them too. But look, that's me in a nutshell. And I recognize all of you are watching this morning. Thanks very much for coming on. I want to share with you now a little energizer, okay? So I want you to pay attention to the screen, okay? Pay attention to the screen. Oh, we got loads of what's going on here. We got a screen inside a screen. What's going on? Oh, yes, I see what's going on. Apologies. Now you should see the screen. If we do that, you got it now. Yeah, brilliant. Apologies. That was a weird Twilight Zone moment. Okay, so we've got our attention test here. This is just to make sure you're awake, okay? So just follow the instructions on the screen. That's all I'd say. Follow the instructions on the screen.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
Is wearing white pass the basketball. Keep counting.
How many passes did you? This is a...
Oh, sorry. Whoops. Gremlins. How many passes did you count? Okay, so I want Rolly, you might tell me what answers are coming in to how many passes did they count. How many passes did you count? I know there's a little delay on YouTube as to how many come in. So Rolly,
I'm keeping it. I've got a 15.
15.
Yeah,
okay.
Another 15. Oh, yeah, 3 15s now. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, Tracy's 15, Adriana's 15, Stephanie's 15, Sarah 14, 23 from Josh.
Oh, wow.
13,
okay.
16, 14, 15, 14, 20,
yeah, 15.
You've seen them coming in there, yeah?
Yeah, I see them coming in there now. Okay, and who was that?
7
Lara
passes,
there, right?
Yeah,
so that's interesting. So somebody spotted it already. I think it was it Lara? Did anybody notice the gorilla? Did anybody notice the gorilla? So there was a gorilla there. Let's just look at him there. See the gorilla through the whole thing. There's the gorilla. He actually went through the whole thing. So it's amazing that you can actually miss something like that, because what's focal is important. What's focal is important. So some of you will have seen the gorilla, and fair play to you. You're awake this morning, but some of you would have just counted the passes and not seen the gorilla at all. So it would have been a difficult thing for you to see the gorilla because you were so focused on the passes. How many of you could tell me what was written on the wall behind? Can anybody tell me what letters were written on the wall behind? Let's see who was really paying attention. I don't. You've been here before, Rolly, haven't you? You know what letters they are.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and that's still. Somebody wrote SOS. Simon wrote S.
Interesting. SOS.
It's another. Yeah, you got an SOS. You got another S.
SOS might be. That might be your subconscious coming out there, because there was definitely no O.
Yeah, Stephanie admits no. She's got no idea. So,
so there was actually 2 S's on the back wall there, and I could go on and ask you how many elevators were on the back wall as well, and there was actually 3 elevators there as well. But the whole point is that sometimes when we focus on something so hard, and this can be like a job search, we can focus on our job search so hard that we miss other things that are going on. So if we put our head down and we just focus on that thing that's really important to us, it can put such stress on that, you know what I mean, that everything is about that nothing else matters. But we know that that isn't true. We know that everything else matters. And that actually, particularly in a job search situation, networking is one of the key things. 60% of people get a job through networking. So to do great work in networking, the one tip I can give you is that you have to keep your eyes open. You have to keep your head up and be looking around for the opportunities. Who is it that you need to talk to? Where is it that you need to be? What conversations do you need to be having with people? So I would say that's the most important thing to keep an eye out in terms of selective attention. Don't get too focused on one thing. Make sure you actually keep your eyes and your head up and look at the opportunities. So that's the first lesson, and I hope you're awake now today. So let's talk about energy. So time is finite. Time is finite. We only have 24 hours in a day. We only have 7 days a week. We only have 60 minutes in an hour. That's all we have. And the clock goes on. Yes, some people would say it's a human construct and time doesn't exist and all that kind of stuff. But look, I'm not a professor of physics. All I know is that we do call it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it is limited. You know, it's interesting to know that if you actually put all your working life, 40 years of your working life together, it would only be about, millions of minutes. I think maybe 4 million minutes or whatever it would be to put all your working life together. So it's only minutes that we have to achieve anything we want. And every minute has to count. But we can't expand the time. We can't expand the time we have. So what we need to do is we need to expand the energy we have, because energy expands. Energy expands. If we put more energy into something in this 1 minute, we can get more out of it. But we haven't stretched the time. We've just stretched the energy that we have. So I want to check in with you this morning as to how your energy is. We'll do a little energy audit here. So how's your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy? These are the 4 pillars of energy that Tony Schwartz talks about. And funnily enough, this has been replicated by other people as well, totally independently. They talk about the fact that there is the 4 pillars of energy. The first one is physical. Your physical energy is the most important. This is the baseline energy. And the most important thing about your physical energy is not food, it's actually sleep. If you can get good sleep, you can set yourself up for the day. And that's really important. So I'm sure there are plenty of people here who would put their hands up and say, yeah, I don't get good sleep. I stay up watching the Netflix box sets and I end up waking 3 and 4 times a night. And yeah, I look at my phone if I can't sleep. But there's so many things that are wrong with that. You got to give yourself the best chance to sleep. So all I can say is that you start to prepare for sleep a long time before you sleep. That's the tip. Okay. So have your pajamas ready. Don't have them so that you have to search for them. Have your room ready before you sit down to watch the television at night. So make sure the curtains are pulled. Make sure whatever clothes you need for the morning are put out in the morning. Make sure you actually brush your teeth an hour before you go to bed rather than just as you go to bed. Because guess what brushing your teeth does? It actually wakes you up. So brushing your teeth wakes you up and it stops you getting a good night's sleep. Please, please, please don't look at your phone before you go to sleep. The light in your phone will actually keep you awake. It will tell your brain, oh, it must be daytime, so let's stay awake. And that's not good for you as well. You can, of course, read a book because that doesn't have any of that light on it and you'll nod off to sleep really well. If you are having trouble going to sleep because you're ruminating and you're thinking about things, feel free to have a diary beside your bed or a little journal beside your bed and just write down the things that you're thinking about and then just place it away from your bed before you go to sleep. It's a really good trick to just get things out of your mind onto a page and away, and you can deal with them tomorrow. They say you should think in ink. So if you ever need to do some clear thinking, take a pen and write it down. Think in ink. It's really important. So that's sleep. The next thing is food. Of course, we should get good, nutritious food into us. And of course, we should move as well is the next thing. So I think last year in particular, a lot of people got out walking and got out running and did a lot of things because we couldn't do anything else in a lot of cases. So a lot of people have been moving a lot more than they used to be. But on a day like today, where it's a bit rainy and it's a bit dreary, we can sometimes kind of say, oh, well, I won't do it today. But, you know, we've never been as blessed with so many chances to move, whether it be looking at, online classes, yoga classes online, HIIT workouts, or even just getting out there and going for a walk. Whatever works for you, you got to get moving every single day. And these things here, these watches that track your movements are a great idea because what's measured gets done. So if you want to reach 10,000 steps, you get to do that every day. So I would advise you looking after your physical health. Then we have our emotional health. And this is all about how we feel about ourselves and the others around us. And we'll get to emotions a bit more in a minute. Then we have our mental focus. And our mental focus is how we can concentrate on something. If you're like me, you can be easily distracted. I'm like the dog out of Up. I can just go squirrel and I'm off on the next thing. But actually mental focus is about being able to stick with something, not forever, but just for about 45 minutes. Can you stick with that one task? You'll know you have achieved good mental focus if you can concentrate for 45 minutes. Okay, so take a task and sit down to it for 45 minutes and then reward yourself with a 10-minute break. Then sit down to the next task as well, right? So sit down to the next task and stick on that for 45 minutes. So that breaks up the day when it comes to mental focus in these 45-minute chunks. And what you can do is you can actually 45 minutes, take a break, 45 minutes, take a break, 45 minutes, take a break. And you can work that into your schedule. And you'll get, maybe 5 or 6 things done a day. If everybody achieved 5 or 6 things in a day, we'd be doing very well. And it's great to not have distractions. Make sure you turn off the phone notifications. Make sure you turn off the email notifications and just focus on that one thing that you have to do. I have a task today to prepare for a course tomorrow that I'm going to be using the 45-minute rule in terms of sticking to that. The last one is spiritual. Okay, this is something that I will not pretend to be able to help you with. This is I am not your guru, as they say. I know my purpose and what my purpose is in life, and I know what feeds my soul. You kind of have to find that as well. And some people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. And all I would say is keep searching then and enjoy the journey of the search for your spiritual purpose, for what makes you you. Just enjoy that. One place I would say is a good place to start is start asking yourself what your values are. So write down your top 10 values. For instance, one of the values I have is fairness. I really believe in fairness. I don't like to see anybody treated unfairly. So I know it's my value because I get angry when I see people treated unfairly. That's how you know something is a value of yours. But for you, it might be family is a key value. It might be trustworthiness as a key value. It might be learning. It might be growth, whatever it is for you, but it will help you with your spiritual journey as you go through your life as well. You know that your energy isn't where it needs to be if it's not in the right zone. Okay, so there are 4 zones here that Tony Schwartz talks about. And the first one I'll talk about is the performance zone. So this is where you're calm and you're optimistic and you're feeling really challenged, and you know you've got a good buzz about you and you're really in the flow. You know what you're doing and you're doing it really well. That's the performance zone. And when we find ourselves in here, we can be really, really happy. And then we have the recovery zone. This is carefree, mellow, relaxed, peaceful. It's great. We're contented in that zone, and we feel like we can start to recover or renew ourselves. But over on the negative side of things, we've got the survival zone and the burnout zone. Now, the survival zone happens when we spend too much time in the performance zone. And this is where we start to get a bit anxious and a bit frustrated with things. So you'll find that you get into the survival zone when things aren't quite going your way and you're finding it hard to break through, or there's a lot of deadlines and you're impatient to get things done, or you're afraid you won't get them done. Or potentially you might find yourself in the survival zone when you're on a job search and you're frustrated and anxious that you can't get that job, or that the interviews aren't going the way you want them to go. And what happens is if we spend too much time in the survival zone, we drop down into the burnout zone. This is where we've got really low energy now, and we're exhausted and empty, and we're just confused, and we're lacking direction. And the tip is we will never get from the burnout zone or the survival zone into the performance zone without first going through the recovery zone. You have to go through the recovery zone first before you get to the performance zone. So what do we do in the recovery zone? What can it be for you? It can be physical exercise. It can be talking to that friend that, you know, always makes you feel better about your situation. Not a cheerleader per se, but somebody who gives you a little bit of perspective on things. Somebody who's good with advice, or even just, you know, more importantly, just listening. Somebody who's a really good listener can make you feel better and mellow and more peaceful and relaxed about your situation. What we don't want is somebody who's going, just get back on the horse, quick go, and tries to move you from the survival zone or the burnout zone to the performance zone straight away. You need to renew first. If you go from the burnout zone and try to go into the performance zone, what will happen is you won't perform. And then you'll start to tell a story to yourself about the fact that you can't perform. Oh, well, I tried to be that. Oh, I remember Stephen talking to me about that he talked to me about that in January, and I just can't seem to get out of this rut I'm in. I tried going into the performance zone. I was telling myself to be really optimistic and challenged and confident, and I couldn't be. So I can't get into the performance zone. And what happens is your confidence is going to go way down. See, what you want to do is move to the recovery zone first. Find that friend, find that activity, find that thing that takes you away from all that other activity, that takes you away from your rumination in your mind, the emptiness and the exhaustion and the frustration and the anger, and go to that place first. And that's where you do your thinking about your next move. Never think about your next move when you're in the negative burnout zone or survival zone. I hope that makes sense to everybody. The book, by the way, Tony Schwartz's book is How to Be Excellent at Anything. And I really would recommend that as a good read. It's a great way to start to create some new habits. Another brilliant book to create habits is one called Atomic Habits by James Clear. He's really condensed a lot of information from a lot of different sources into one book about how to create good habits. And your whole life is habits. Everybody puts on their trousers one leg at a time, and everybody has a preferred leg that they put on their trouser. Everybody brushes their teeth with, the same hand. For me, it's the right hand. If I ever want to think differently, all I need to do is start to brush my teeth with the other hand, and it'll feel different. But it's just a habit that I have, that I would use my dominant hand to brush my teeth, or to wear my watch on my left hand, my left wrist instead of my right. So these are all habits. These are all the unconditional things that we do. So emotions. Okay, let's see if we can play this little game of emotions. What time are we at? Yeah, we've got a half an hour. Great stuff. So emotions. Can anybody tell me what emotions they see on the screen in front of them? So what are the 6 emotions we have here? We've the lady in the top left. Let's start with the lady in the top left and then move our way across and down as if we were reading a book there. So what do you think? Put your answers in the chat box there and send them in to Ian and Rowley, and let's see what we have. The thing about emotions that I want to tell you while you're telling me what these emotions are, just tell me what the emotions are, is that the emotions that we all feel are like the exhaust fumes of the system of our body. Okay, the emotions that we all feel are like the exhaust fumes of the system of our body. So we have Lucia coming in, telling me that confused, Marianne, angry. Yeah, we can see that one. Frustration and anger is there as well. Yeah, fed up. Oh, that's a proper emotion. I'm just fed up. Yeah. Annoyed is there as well from Fiona. Surprised. Yeah. Okay. We have a surprised. I think that's probably the lady in the bottom left. Confused, not sure. Yeah. Okay. From Keen. So you can see how everybody's actually recognizing these emotions, but people have different labels. Jennifer's saying stressed is one of them there. Happy is another one there. So people have different, some people would call it stressed. Some people would call it anger. Some people would call it annoyed. Some people, we have different names for our emotions. And what's really interesting about that is that 36% of people actually can't name their own emotions, never mind somebody else's. They can't name their own emotions. So you can imagine if you met one of those people in your day-to-day life or in your work, and they can't even recognize their own emotions and label them correctly. So they are having emotions. There's nobody that doesn't have emotions. Some people will hide emotions and some people won't show their emotions, but everybody's having emotions. Because what's happening is I'll actually go through that in a minute, but what's happening in our brain is we're taking in all the information and we're having an emotion before we're even thinking about a thing. But 36% of people can't recognize their emotions. So what chance does that give them to actually recognize the emotions of others, which is a really important skill in life? So what happens with our emotions is an external event happens, okay? So it could be something we've read, it could be something we've seen, it could be something we've heard, it could be something we've touched, a smell or a taste, anything like that. Any of the senses there, any of the 5 senses. And what happens is we actually bring that into our brain through our limbic system. So it goes through our limbic system first. And it actually takes 75 milliseconds for that information to travel to the rest of our brain through our mammalian brain to our prefrontal cortex, where we actually do our thinking. So long before we actually have a thought about a thing, we have an impulse about it, because it's in our limbic system, in our hypothalamus and our hippocampus, where we actually have impulse control. And so we have an impulse first. So if you're ever trying to find out what somebody is really thinking, have a look at that micro expression that happens when they immediately see something. If they curl their lip, they're probably a little bit disgusted by something, or a little bit, if they frown, they might be a little bit confused by it at first. And it's that micro expression that will tell you what's happening to that person. But the problem is we don't just take it in the data the same as everybody. We actually take it in based on our own lived experience in our life. So we generalize, distort, delete things. And what happens is we play a tape in our head, which says, oh, I've seen this before. Oh yeah, here's Rowley. He's after coming into the office to me and he's angry. I've seen this before. Generalize, distort, delete. I'm just going to shout back at Rowley. So Rowley, I don't care. Bang. I play the tape of anger because and it mightn't have been Rowley that was shouting at me before, but maybe I had a boss before that didn't, that kept on shouting, and it just was anger. And it taught me that the only way I was able to, fight my corner was to shout back. And so I play the tape of dealing with that. And that's the 95-5 rule. So 95% of what we do is just these tapes being played unconsciously. Think about when you're the passenger in a car and you're going along the motorway and you go really close up behind another car and the brake lights of the car in front go on. And what happens to your foot? Your foot goes to the brake light. Well, you don't have any brakes in front of you because you're the passenger. That's the problem. But what you do is you look over at the driver as if to say, why aren't you braking? And what's happened there is that the tape of what to do when a red light comes on is being played in your head, and you move your foot. It's so powerful that you actually physically move your foot. And that's the 95-5 rule at work. It's just this cue, routine, reward. That's what's happening, because we get a little dash of dopamine every time we do one of these little tapes. Your brain is trying to be efficient. So it's saying, seen this before, let's play the tape. Let's not spend any energy on this. Let's just play the tape and just get through it. Now, the trick for us humans is to treat the brain like any other organ, like our liver, like our lungs, like our heart. And actually, we want it to do what we want, not what it wants, okay? It is not in charge. Our brain is not in charge. We are in charge. This is a whole system that we have. It's not just about this little thing up here. There's not these little guys up in our brain controlling what we do. In fact, 90% of the traffic in our bodies goes upwards into our brain, not downwards from our brain. So it goes upwards into our brain. So you have to remember that there's a whole body system, and you should listen to your whole body, and don't listen to everything your brain tells you, because it's not always right. Absolutely not always right. What it's doing is it's using past experience, and it's putting a filter, a distortion, a generalization on it. Okay. So you have to take the facts as they are each time, as much as you can. Now, by the way, it can be very efficient to use the 95-5 rule when you're just doing simple things. But when we're trying to think about problems, that's when we really need to get out of that habit. And it could be interesting for you to know that actually we have 87 billion neurons in our head, okay? We have 40 million in our heart, and we actually have 100 million in our gut. So the neurons that are in there are actually connected together, and they really are a whole system. And what's really interesting is an orangutan has 14 billion neurons. So if you think about where we are on the evolutionary chain when it comes to the brain and what we can use it for, we really want to be in control of that, because it's a very sophisticated system. We have 87 billion neurons, and our nearest relatives on the animal chain only have 14 billion. So now that we know a little bit about our brain, what happens with that? It comes out in our behavior. So if Rolly shouts at me, I shout back. And what's happening is I am displaying an emotion. It'll be joy, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, and anger. But what we now know is that actually there's a lot more. They did a study in 2017 in University College Berkeley over in the States, and they found they put sensors on people's heads, and they seen which parts lit up as they looked at videos of different things that would elicit an emotion. And they found that there was actually 27 different emotions. All these different emotions, whether it's awkwardness, nostalgia, calmness, confusion, entrancement, anxiety, adoration. So it's no wonder that people can't label their emotions. I didn't know about all these emotions until I read the study. I've had all these emotions, but I didn't realize that actually there were a separate part of me that was lighting up each time. And you can actually go on to the Berkeley website, and you can do this for yourself, and you can see some of the videos. Trigger warning though, some of the videos do elicit the emotion of horror, and some of them do elicit the emotion of empathic pain. You know what I mean? So they're tough videos to watch. So don't go in there if you don't want to be shocked in some way. So there's 27 different emotions that you have to consider. And we, even as humans, do this mental splitting thing where we emotionally split, and we can have up to 3 or 4 emotions at any one time. So what I would say is don't be afraid to feel all those emotions, and ask yourself, why am I having that emotion? And how is it going to serve me? That is always the question with an emotion. How is it going to serve me? What's it telling me? What is my system telling me? Okay. When you have that emotion, your system is talking to you. You can listen to it, and then you can override it and do something else, or you can go with it and see where it brings you. Okay. But what you're doing is, this is another signal that you can listen to. Okay. It's another signal that you can listen to. And why this is important is because we get into this behavior interpretation loop. So somebody has an intention and it comes out in their behavior. And what happens is then another person observes it and they interpret that behavior. And that might not be an accurate interpretation of their intention. And what happens is then they have an intention and a behavior, and it goes back and it's observed by the other person. And so constantly the human condition is this behavioral interpretation loop. Observation, interpretation, intention, behavior, observation, interpretation. And that's what's happening all the time. So in your relationships at home, in your relationships with the network that you're networking with, in relationships with the people that you're interacting with here at Jobcare, you will actually see the behavior interpretation loop happening all the time. And it's really important that you actually figure out that it's your job. It's your job to manage your emotions in this, and not to be worried about what another person's intention was, another person's behavior was, but rather what their intention is. That's the key. Let's look for intention and not behavior, because that will help you be more skillful in your job search and in your work. Because there's a little formula that I have here. IQ, that's our cognitive intelligence. Cognitive intelligence, the good news is that it's pretty much fixed at 17 or 18. Once you reach that age, your cognitive intelligence is where it's going to be. The brilliant thing is that average IQ is really average, as in most people have an average IQ. So there's a few people with a brilliant IQ and a few people with less high IQ, but most people have an average IQ. So it's good to know that you're in the majority. For a start, but you can't really grow your IQ. You have what you have. And then we have TQ. These are the skills that we learn on the job, sometimes in college, whether it be on an apprenticeship or whatever else we're doing. We learn technical skills as well. TQ are the technical skills. But the most important one, the one that the studies show is the most important as we go through our career, is EQ, emotional intelligence. And that's why I've spent time telling you about emotions, because managing your emotions, understanding your emotions, is the first step to emotional intelligence. Then what we have to do is go into that behavioral interpretation loop, where once I understand my emotions and manage my emotions, I can observe your emotions and I can understand what's happening with you, and I can manage the relationship between the two. And that is the key to success in a career. People with high EQ outperform people with high IQ 70% of the time, okay? So employers are looking for people with high EQ. And if you are going into an interview, I would suggest that you would have a line or a paragraph in your mind that you're able to talk about, to demonstrate how you have shown high emotional intelligence and how you can work with others. You'll see a lot on job ads that say, must be able to work in a team, or must be able to work well with others, or must be able to foster great interpersonal relationships. Well, that's what they're actually talking about. They're basically saying, must have high EQ. That's what they're saying. So you need to actually figure out what your EQ is like, and start to grow it and start to observe other people's emotions as well, and manage the relationship between the two. A great book is Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. So you can read that. Or Travis Bradbury, he has Emotional Intelligence 2.0, I think it's called. Travis Bradbury's book as well is quite good on emotional intelligence. But there's the key component of emotional intelligence when it comes to where you are at the moment is optimism. Okay, where you find yourself in the job search. And by the way, optimism is one of the best emotional intelligence components that you can ever foster. But optimism is key to success. Optimism is not about being happy clappy all the time. Okay, optimism is not about sharing great Instagram quotes. Optimism is actually about, in the face of adversity, can you bounce back? In the face of adversity, can you still see hope? In the face of adversity, can you keep pushing through? That's when people demonstrate true optimism, okay? When they keep pushing through. Winston Churchill, who I wouldn't be a great fan of, but he does have a great quote which says, when you're going through hell, keep going. That's the only way you're going to get to the other side. When you're going through hell, keep going. And that is optimism. Remember, optimism is forged in adversity, not in the good times. So it's not about the guy. I've been accused of being optimistic a lot of times, but funnily enough, some people would have seen me when I've been pessimistic, and they say, my God, you know what I mean? It's a different person when you're pessimistic. But it's only when I feel that I don't have a way, you know, that's when the pessimism creeps in. But there is always a way through. Things will always change. All we are is change. So there is always a reason for optimism, always. And optimists get paid more, which is really interesting. So if you're an optimist, when you think about it, you're the one that will ask for the pay rise. You're the one that will ask for the job. You're the one that will ask for more money. So they actually do get paid more. Optimists are healthier, and optimists outperform pessimists by, I think it's about 12 times. Okay, so it pays to be an optimist. It surely pays to be an optimist. Right. I'll finish up shortly now, but I just want to finish on this. I hope what I've said is making sense for where you are at the moment. And I recognize that, when I'm talking to you guys, you're looking for work, you're looking to get that role that you want, you're looking to tell your story in a certain way that somebody hires you. I mean, essentially, that's what we're trying to do. That's the job we have at the moment, is to get a job. That's the job. But I always think that telling your story is one of the most important things you can do at the moment, and really refining what your story is, because you're going to have to tell your story to employers. You're going to have to tell your story to the people you network with. You're going to have to tell your story to coaches that you might meet through Jobcare. You're going to have to tell your story to the people that are in your group in Jobcare. You're going to be telling your story lots and lots of times. So my advice is to be the author of your story in a really deliberate way, because you are the star, the director, and the editor of your story. Nobody else gets to tell your story, okay? If you leave it up to somebody else to tell your story, they'll make a hash of it at the end of the day, right? It's up to you to tell your story. You've experienced all you've experienced. There were people along the way, but they didn't experience it in the same way you did. You made decisions. Whether you like it or not, there was decisions made by you that got you here as well, okay? And you have to take ownership over that. Because if you don't take ownership over that, you can't take ownership over the good things too. If you don't take ownership over the bad things, you can't take ownership over the good things. And then it's up to you to edit it, okay? Philip Seymour Hoffman, he would have said that a film is made in the editing room. So it's in the editing room where we actually make our film. And I'm going to give you a bit of homework today. I want you to edit your story, to edit your film to this point now, okay? And I want you to bring that into your Jobcare groups. I want you to talk to your coaches about that story. And I want you to really, excuse me, sorry, frog in my throat. I want you to really be particular about what you highlight, what you are honest about, and where you get to. Because if we were to edit our story at certain points, they could be a tragedy. If we were to edit our story at a certain point, it could be a drama. Or if we were to edit our story at certain points, it could be a comedy, okay? Life is all of those things. Life is tragedy, comedy, drama, horror sometimes. It has everything in it. But you don't have to edit it at the tragedy piece. You can have hope and optimism. You can bring it on to the next stage already, because you are the scriptwriter. You're the editor, you're the director, and you're the star. So remember, at the start of this session, I came on and I said, hey, my name is Steve. And when I was a teenager, I watched Good Morning Vietnam. That's quite deliberate, because I went back through my story and said, when did it really start for me? When did I have a sense of myself? And I really do think it was back then I started having a sense of who I was and what I wanted to do. And even though I didn't end up doing radio, I still do a podcast now. So I still get to communicate to a lot of people in that way through the Good Boss, Bad Boss podcast. Or I still get to communicate to people when I'm talking to people like you in groups. So that common thread of communication with people and connection and believing in the potential of people and being fascinated by other people's stories is part of my story. And I've had really low points as well. I've had the worst days in work. I've had bosses tell me they wanted to crucify me and nail me to the wall physically. You know what I mean? They said that. I've had people say, you've really damaged your career. I've had those words said to me, and I've gone out of the office thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Because, I make mistakes, and that's fine. But they're not what defines me. They're the optimism that was forged in that fire is what defines me. Knowing that actually I took a path and took a way to move forward with that and take the good out of that as well. What were the lessons I learned? Those were the things that really mattered to me in my story. I love the highs and I really appreciate the lows as well, because they've taught me something too. So what I want you to do for your homework, okay? I want you to write the story of your career. I want you to put in the highs and lows, but I want you to do it with an optimistic frame. So the lows will be lessons. We need to stop calling them lows now. So I want you to put in the highlights and the lessons. The highlights and the lessons. And that's what I want to see from you, okay? So your table facilitators or your group facilitators will check in on this, but I want you to be prepared to tell your story to somebody else. It doesn't have to be in a big group, but definitely on a one-to-one. I want you to be able to tell the lessons and the highlights of your career, because you're going to have to talk to other people about this, and this is going to help you grow your emotional intelligence, because it will help you understand your own emotions about this even better. And in this way, we can start being more resilient about where we are and even more optimistic about where we're going. That's the goal. So I'll leave you with this quote, and then we have time for some questions. To have a better life, we must keep choosing how we are living. Albert Einstein, who I don't think anybody can argue he was brilliant, a guy who didn't do so well in school, who, you know, got kicked out of plenty of classes for not being good enough, was homeschooled by his mother, and, you know, he achieved great things. And he was optimistic about his outlook on the world, but he did say, to have a better life, we must keep choosing how we are living. And I really like that quote, because the day you stop choosing is the day you give control over to somebody else. You need to keep choosing every day how you're using your life. And that's the most important thing. So that's where we'll leave it. Please do, by the way, connect with me, right? I want to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's the professional network. And we have spent time together now, even though it was one way, but I don't mind if it's two way. After all these sessions, I do get a few emails on LinkedIn from different people talking about different things. And as I say, I really do like hearing people's stories, okay? And I enjoy hearing people's stories. So, you know, I'm part of the network of Jobcare as well. I can be a resource for you too. One thing I would say is have a listen to the Good Boss, Bad Boss podcast. Not because I want to push the listenership figures up, but there is something about listening to other people's stories of adversity, of how they got through and their optimism, that really helps us as well, because we can have that empathy with them. In particular, I would say Nora Casey's story is just amazing. She is just some woman for one woman. It's just unreal what she's done in her life. And she really did make her own way and came through a huge amount of adversity. So what I would say is go and have a listen to that. It will help you in your situation as well. Okay, let's open it to the floor in terms of connecting. We can kill the slideshow now, I think. Yeah. Okay, Rolly, welcome back. How was that for you, Rolly?
Energizing. As always. It also made me think back to the last one of these when I really felt challenged about my sleep routine.
Yeah.
And when I scrolled back in my, because I use a tracking watch as well. So I scrolled back through my app, and at the time we spoke last, I was averaging 4 hours and 43 minutes of sleep a night.
Wow. Okay.
I've gotten it up to 6 hours and 30 minutes.
That's huge. That is actually huge. Like
and I can really notice the difference in myself. I really do.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So,
it is amazing.
I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, if you get anywhere between 7 to 8 hours, you know, is optimal, really. You know, some people need a little bit more, and some people can get away with a little bit less. But actually, sleeping too long isn't good, because it is a habit. And you're not kickstarting your metabolism. Between 7 to 8 hours is fine, but anything less than 6.
Yeah, it was always a story I told myself that I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, there's lots of positive.
Yeah, I was the same, by the way. Just on the sleep thing, I was the same. I used to think sleep was stealing my life, because but sleep is such an important process for your body. It literally, they know now that it washes out toxins from your brain. So that the act of lying down and shutting down your brain in that way, it actually washes out the toxins, because all those emotions and sparks and chemical connections that are happening, they're creating toxins that need to be washed out. So do get good sleep. So look, I was the same. I used to think sleep was a terrible thing. Now I love it.
Yeah, and I noticed I've got more emotional resilience. I actually have more capacity to do things. It's definitely easier to bounce back. So just onto a couple of comments. Lots of people were saying thank you very much. It was very inspiring. It was interesting.
Great.
It was engaging. But also there's a couple of questions I'd love to get to.
I see there the podcast is available. So look up Good Boss, Bad Boss podcast on Spotify or on iTunes, or you can go to my website, stephennaughton.com, and they're all there too. And I seen Jennifer Van Uffelen, I hope I pronounced that right, said, read While We Sleep. Why We Sleep. It is brilliant. That is a great book. You're dead right, Jennifer. Brilliant book. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I think that landed it for me as well. I listened to that on Audible while I was out running, so I got through that one. So yeah, do you see there's a link to your LinkedIn there? But I think one of the questions is Sarah Reynolds asks, how did you stay positive after knockback?
So I would say I'd rewind to maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So yeah, I worked in a bank during the largest financial crash in recent history, and I lost all my bosses because they all either retired or went on redundancy, and suddenly I was on my own. So I went from a team of 5 people. We were specialists. We did operational risk, and next thing I was literally on my own, and I had no boss. I had no support network. And that was probably the first proper hit I would have taken in the workplace. And the first thing to do, I've now looking back, I kind of did it naturally, but looking back was reach out for help. Reach out to the people that will rely on you. There was an old boss I had who I got on really well with, and he actually was in a building beside mine. And I went to him and I said, hey, I just need somebody to go to bounce things off. Will you be that guy? And you know what happened was he actually went to the bosses and said, actually, why don't we get Stephen to report to me? And that was it. Even though it was, so actually reach out and ask for help is the first thing I would say. That's number one. Now that boss, by the way, is still my mentor years and years later. He's been my mentor forever. So I really do think there's some people that you can just constantly rely on. The other thing is keep trying things. You know what I mean? I've had plenty of failures in my life of things that didn't work. But do you know who remembers them? Just me. Nobody else remembers them. Nobody. I have to actually tell people. Even my best friend who would have been there for all of them. I say, oh, do you remember I did that thing? And he'd go, oh yeah, I remember that. But doesn't really. Because guess what? Everybody's too caught up in their own world to actually remember your mistakes. They've got their own mistakes. So don't worry about trying something. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work and you've learned something. Who cares? Try. I literally above my office desk here, I have a picture of Yoda from Star Wars. And Yoda, as we know, says, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. And that is key to me. There is no try. You have to just do it. And if it doesn't work, great. What have you learned? That's key. And then the other thing I would say is keep learning and growing. I always say, you know what I mean? If you're not growing, you're dying. So you have to be like a tree like that. If you're not growing, you're dying. So keep growing. If you're a reader, or if you look at YouTube, or if you look at, if you're on Netflix or whatever your medium that you take in information, make sure that there's a good portion of that is educational. Make sure it opens a different part of your brain. That's one thing I would say is really key, because opening your brain to new ideas opens your brain to optimism and hope and possibility.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Is that why there's a tree on your wall over your shoulder there, is it?
Yeah, that's absolutely. No, the tree represents growth. The tree represents growth. That during the lockdown, I stuck that on the wall because I was doing some work with Quilcha, And I asked them about that. I said, what happens when a tree stops growing? And they said, it's dying.
Yeah.
And I just thought, that's exactly what we're like.
But it's really interesting because we're just at that stage of winter where we're going to start to see those buds coming out. And we also need to remember that, like, you can't be blooming, you can't be flowering all the time. That's just not the natural cycle of things. So there are times when you have to slow down and take a breath and be ready for the next phase.
Absolutely,
Well,
yeah, absolutely. I see Lucia Duggan put in some advice there. Wash your hands. That's good advice these days, all right.
Oh, that's great. But there was another one, and it's kind of a follow-on from that. Anna asked, how do you bounce back on the bad days? But it kind of follows on for that, but like just like kind of a little bit more specific on noticing that maybe your energy is low, or it's like you're pushing a truck up a hill. Like, what advice would you have to switch it up?
Yeah, some days it can be just like wading through treacle, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't get that. I actually had one of those days yesterday, would you believe? It was Blue Monday. I had Blue Monday.
I definitely felt the energy of that, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually got up yesterday and my heating wasn't working. The heating in the house wasn't working. And it's still not working, by the way. It's still not working. And the guy is coming out tomorrow. So our house is cold for a start. And I was like, and I had a whole plan for the morning, but I had to go out to the boiler and try and fix it. So I spent about 3 hours at the boiler, not doing what I was supposed to be doing, but doing something that was very important. And I still didn't fix it. So that really put me in bad form. But what I did was I actually took lunchtime to reset. And how I did it was I sat down with my family and sat down with the kids and had a little chat. And it actually only took 20 minutes to have a chat and hear what was going on for them, to actually make me go, okay, back in the zone, get back upstairs and do your stuff. And I sat down and I used the 45-minute focus rule. That's what I did. I actually sat down and said, right, 45 minutes on this task. And that's it. And I hit it for 45 minutes. And what was brilliant about that first 45 minutes was I broke the back of it. Now, the task that I was supposed to do yesterday, I didn't get it done. Okay. But I've broken the back of it. And I already know that I'm going to do it today and it'll be fine and it'll be ready for tomorrow. So it's fine. And then the other thing I did was I had a great conversation with somebody else. And just as it happens, Rowley, that was you. So I actually had a conversation with Rowley at 2:00 yesterday. And what I did was I got out of myself in that conversation because I was talking about Rowley and what was going on with him and the great projects that he was working on and the things that were going on with his family. And Rowley's wife is an artist. And that just for me is so cool that she's creating these things. And it got me out of me. So what I would say is to switch on your bad days is get out of your head, get out of yourself. Go into somebody else's world, walk in somebody else's shoes. That's going to be really key to getting out of yourself. Because once you get out of yourself, you can get a better perspective on yourself. Yeah, they say, if you're out of your mind, get out of your head.
I think that's a great place to leave it there, because I think it's really spot on. Our hour is up. So really appreciate your energy, your effort. A great way to start the year and start off some of our courses. So thank you so much for that, Stephen. Where can people find you?
So yeah, stephennaughton.com is the website, and I throw a few bits and pieces up there. But LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I am on LinkedIn and I will respond. Just let me know you're coming from Jobcare and that you're not trying to sell me something, and then I'll respond back to you for sure. It's great to see all the questions coming in. If you do have any questions, please do just send me a mail and I will I'll respond to you. You know what I mean? I enjoy connecting with people. That is my purpose in life. So I really enjoy that.
That's great. Anyway, thank you so much for everything you've brought us. And yeah, please feel free to connect to Stephen on LinkedIn, connect to me on LinkedIn, and we can follow on the conversation there. But you'll also get to follow it on in your own course as we move on through the rest of the day. Stephen, thanks very much for your time. And we're going to wrap it up there. That's great.
Thanks a million, Rolly, and thanks everybody for listening. It's great to. I'm sorry, I'm waving over at the comment box. So thanks everybody for your attention. I really appreciate it. It's a real privilege for me, and very humbling actually that you're here. So thank you.
Great. Thanks to Stephen for a great session. Thanks to all the participation. It's great to see lots of people here and the comments all coming up. So thanks all for that. So that's it. Over and out for another Jobcare Live. Thank you.